All right. It is that time and we're ready to have industry and labor. Okay, what number you? All right, for Representative Barton, if you'd open us in prayer.
All right, everyone bow your head. Heavenly Father, thank you for the gathering we have today. Please be with us as we make decisions for the state of Georgia. Thank you for all that you do for us. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. All right, we've got three. I don't think everybody's got a folder but me. Okay, Senate Bill 156, Senator Harbin. Come on up and tell us about this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Chairman, and members of the committee. Appreciate it. SB 156 is really a simple bill with helping the Department of Labor, the workers there, and the issues of checks. We have, the estimate that we have is 300,000 people that are waiting or in process of checks that have not been processed or they can't get answers in resolving to. The second, I think, is that making sure that all the proper information gets to the auditors that needs to be there for anything to do with our ratings and our financial ratings of the state. It simply puts another person there to assist and to place that in place for helping in that situation of no doubt a large workflow that's there, but it simply adds that other person there and an additional accountability. It does have a sunset provision in it as well from that standpoint, but a fairly simple bill, but I think a bill that addresses some of the issues that we're facing.
Is that Carpenter or Todd? Okay, Representative Carpenter.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Senator, very much for bringing that, because I know we all experienced the nightmare that was COVID-19 as far as Department of Labor goes. And I appreciate this measure. I always see things as an opportunity, and I think this is an opportunity to provide some additional assistance to the department. I would hope that as we go through this process as well, that the appropriators would appropriate more funds to provide for this officer instead of taking them out of the existing funds of the Department of Labor, because I think they've been maxed out at this point. I'm not a big fan of dumping a bunch of money into the Department of Labor, but I do think, obviously, with what we've seen, they need a little bit of more money for the time being anyway. So I appreciate you, and I appreciate the sunset. I think it's a great measure.
I would even address that with our head of appropriations as well.
Is that Kirby? Who's six? Representative Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the bill, Senator Harbin. What has the Labor Commissioner said regarding this bill? Has he made any comment?
He's here today, so I believe you're going to get an answer to that. He's hiding behind a pole back there. No, depending on where you're sitting, whether he's hiding or not.
Okay.
I can see him very clearly.
Thank you so much. And one more question, if I may. On line 31, it says the position would be subject to confirmation by the Senate Committee on Government Oversight. I was just wondering whether or not any of the House members or House committee would have an opportunity to participate in the appointment and confirmation of this individual.
Would be open to that. That would be glad to do that. Where we were moving at the time, that's where we were moving, but be open to that.
Yeah, and actually, although it does seem lopsided on paper, that's kind of the normal. Like the governor appoints close to 2,000 people, and the Senate confirms everything, and the House doesn't for some reason. I guess since we hold the purse strings, we let y'all do the.
Y'all got all the money.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Pruitt. Is that you? Somebody right next to me. Is that okay? I'm sorry. Representative Todd Jones.
Senator, thank you so much. Hey, I don't mean to jump right into amendments, but on line 22,
Okay.
one of the challenges that my constituents had on a consistent basis and are still having it is the lack of responsiveness. They felt like they were going into a black hole. And basically what I kept hearing was, if I just knew, Like, am I 6 weeks away, 20 weeks away? I could be 6 months away. I just need to know, Todd, because I just don't know. So is there a possibility as a friendly amendment, could we say, develop and implement a strategy to improve the reliability, timeliness, and responsiveness of service?
I would play your song at my office as well. It's the same song that I'm hearing, and I would be, open to that amendment. I believe that we need to be responsive to the people that we serve. And also I would be open to that if you'd like to do that.
Thank you, Senator. Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I'd like
Yeah.
to make that motion.
And Chairman Chairman Jones, our able attorney has to get out here at 3:30. If you want to slide over there and talk with her just to make sure the wording fits her standard. Is that Representative Barton? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, number 5.
All right, gotcha. Go ahead. All these numbers are different than
Okay.
what I've got. I'm sorry, Representative Holly.
All right. Just really thank you, Senator Harbin, for bringing this bill. I think if we all have, really been faced on particularly with calling our constituents and updating the spreadsheet and getting it out there. And I know last time we spoke with Commissioner Butler, and he stated that while many of these cases that there's none hanging, they're all processing, but the processing itself, takes, I guess there hasn't been a specified range, and we were just trying to get a range, something that's finite, because our people want to know, when will they get that? When will they get some type of notice in there? So I just really wanted just to commend you, and it's very good to see that at least within this committee and within this body, that we understand that Georgia people, they need to get some level of response, especially if they're trying to get their money. And it's good to see that this is a bipartisan measure that we can put forward.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Anybody else have a question for the senator? Oh, okay, nobody online. There is people online,
Oh,
but
okay.
nobody's got their hand raised.
Yes, I do.
Either
Mr.
raise your hand or put in a comment, and I do hear some chatter.
Mr. Chairman, my hand is raised.
Representative Dewey McLean from Gwinnett County.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Senator Harbin, for bringing this. I've always have one question when we do these things, you answered one of my questions while we created it, which I think was good. But do you know of any other state that has what you're trying to create? I mean, because everybody had a problem. I just don't get me wrong. I don't think that just the citizens of Georgia had problems getting their unemployment checks or PUA funds. I think all 50 states probably had problems. I'm just trying to figure out, does anyone else have this position?
Not to my knowledge that I know of. I've looked at a little bit, but I know that what we've seen is that people that are, I want to say desperate, there's a desperateness about them that they've called. I had somebody who said, I spent all day calling and could not get a response. We had one person call our office and said, I'm gonna kill myself, and my staff gave him to me, and we were trying to get him some help just from a local church because he was going through that. So I think the biggest thing is that I've not seen anything like that, but I think we need to respond in some way, that we have a timeline of where you can know what's going on. And I think the other part is that we got to realize a lot of folks are still not tied to the internet. They're not tied to email and things of that nature. And therefore, the phone is their only means of communication. And so I think that's another part that we need to be able to have some way to cue that in and to track what goes on. And I run a business, and you know what? We know when a call comes in, it's dated in time. We know how long it takes to get back to somebody. And I think that's the type of thing that we need to do for the citizens of Georgia.
Mr. Chairman, I guess my question was, and I can see Commissioner Butler too on my screen, and he was back there shaking his head that there's no other state that has this. So I guess I got my answer without you answering it. Thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Appreciate it.
All right, anybody else online, if you'd either use the raise hand option or the comment section. No, I'm too loud. So that we can see you, because I'm trying not to ignore you. And I want to thank Sarah for being here to help us out. Anybody else? Yes, Sorry, get back to my, okay, Representative Park.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may, additional question came to mind,
Okay.
and the Labor Commissioner may be able to respond to this as well. But by creating by creating this new position, would that create additional potential conflict between what the duties of the current Labor Commissioner are with this new position, and would that potential conflict exacerbate the problem? I think would just be a concern that comes to mind.
That's a tough question to answer in and of itself. But there's also, they say that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results.
Yes.
So I think that's really how I would respond. Is right now we need to respond for the people of Georgia.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Okay, well, I don't think we're going to get that chance. Is there anybody else in the audience that wanted to speak to this before the commissioner came up? All right, Commissioner, come talk to us.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I have lots of questions about this bill. First of all, I don't think that the spirit of this bill was to help the Department of Labor. I think that's obvious, anybody that knows kind of what's going on, because it does not actually help the Department of Labor in any kind of way. Appointing somebody who has no experience in what we do to come over there and supposedly help us does not achieve anything, because who's going to train that person? Well, it's going to be one of us. I have a lady with me today, Denise Beckwith, been with the state 27 years, who is the director of UI. There is nobody who is more of an expert on UI than she is. I would have brought my finance director, who has been with the state for almost that many years, who handles audits. However, she has health conditions that will not allow her to go out in public. And so she is not here today. And so I would ask the question, some of the stuff that keeps getting said, there's actually no fact behind it. Like, where's the 300,000 number come from? That's a fictional number. There is not 300,000 people out there waiting. Well, first of all, we don't do checks anymore and haven't done checks in about 10 years, but there's not 300,000 people waiting on payments. Our payment rate is over 95% for everybody who is deemed eligible and has requested payments. We are one of the very top states. As of the month of February, the USDOL put out some new information which showed Georgia was 22nd in the nation on timeliness of payments. And by the way, all the states in front of us were smaller than we were. Matter of fact, we had actually processed and paid more people than the top 7 states combined. The closest state to us had done about 1.2 million fewer claims. So even by their judgment, we are one of the fastest and best states of our size. And when it comes to this question about the audits, I'm not aware of anything that we have not done with audits, and nobody in the Senate has been able to actually point to an actual something. It's just like, well, we've heard that you haven't. Well, what is it? And I have not heard one actual thing. There's been some things that are requested that are not available and cannot be done because they can't be. And most stuff that we're being asked for now has nothing to do with the state budget. And quite frankly, when all this got buzzed about us being, or not being responsive to the state auditor, we were not aware there were any issues until January 19th. They came to us 2 days before Christmas with a brand new, very, very large data request. By the way, at that very same time, we were having to put in place the changes that were passed by Congress at the very end of December because they had failed to do any kind of extension since July and then waited until December to do it. And what they passed was extraordinarily complicated and quite frankly convoluted. I don't know if you're aware of this, but in the first extension bill that they passed in December, they did only 11-week extension. However, most people had started already running out of benefits during October, November, and December. And instead of writing something simple that says, okay, we're going to pay about all these back weeks. By the way, I've heard a lot of these folks in Washington, criticizing Department of Labor for being heartless, supposedly for not helping people. But they didn't go back and pay all those weeks that they had skipped over. Matter of fact, it was anywhere between 8 and 12 weeks that people didn't get paid. Did they go back and pay them? No. They said, if you're still unemployed after the first of the year, then we'll start paying you then. What happened to those other 2 months? I guess you said, well, that's simple. Just start paying them then. Well, these people have been certifying. So now you've got to go back in and reprogram your system to ignore all those certifications, all those requests for payments for all those people in those different programs for that time period, but yet start paying them again over here. That is extraordinarily difficult and very convoluted, and it should not have been done that way. And by the way, we had sent a letter all the way back in the summer asking our congressional delegation, before you pass anything new, please reach out to us and let us know what you're doing so we can have some input. No calls, no reaching out like normal, right? You talk about, you say, oh, we know who calls our business. Well, you've never had 60,000 people call your business a day. You've never had to deal with 4.7 million claims. Nobody has ever had to deal with that many claims. We have done a killer job. And the one thing that we asked for from the members of the General Assembly, and especially the Senate in person, was, they said, well, what can we do to help you? What can we do to help you? Well, at this point in the game, because all of our other quests in the last 10 years have been denied for more funding. And last year in the budget process, we asked them not to cut us yet again, but yet we did get about a $1.2 million cut that was voted on by the General Assembly in just this last budget. We said, the only thing you can do to help us now is, help us identify your constituents using your staff and yourself, and let us know who it is that we need to help. And they said, yeah, we'll do that. And I took that at face value. And then a couple of weeks later, I started getting some certain legislators out in front of career centers protesting because now they're getting phone calls from constituents. I guess I shouldn't have taken that. I should have said, don't worry about it. We've got it, but we put the word out, if you can't get in touch with us, also call your legislator's office. That was a mistake. We should not have done that because apparently that's caused a lot of these problems right here. I talked to my counterpart in Texas this afternoon about an issue that we're having with USDOL and how they're going to handle it. And I asked him how his legislature was doing. And he says, they've been really good to us. They understand the issue. They understand how tough things have been and, the load that we're having to deal with. And they've loaned us their staff and they've got people to us and it's done really well. I said, well, I'm very jealous of Texas. My folks have sweated. They have worked hard. I'm extremely proud of them. The amount of hours they have put in overtime is spectacular. The Senate committee, when they did this bill the first time, which we were not aware they were going to hear it that day, they accused us of not doing anything about this. We've hired almost 600 people during a pandemic. Go back home and ask some of your employers how hard it's been for them to hire in the last 12 months. I bet you can't find one employer that has added 600 people during this pandemic. But we've been busting it and getting after it to add those people. During the Great Recession, which lasted 3 years, it took the Department of Labor 3 years to get up to 2,000 people. We're at over 1,600 in less than a year during a pandemic, which, by the way, a pandemic who was paying out unemployment that exceeded our starting salaries at one point. I don't know if y'all know this, but back during the very beginning, when we had the big deluge of claims in April and May, unemployment was paying people that we would be looking at to hire the equivalent of $50,000 a year. And you can't compete with that. What would I have to pay somebody to come to work in the very high stress area that we were working in? You couldn't pay them 50. They're not going to pay, you can't pay them that. Plus, most of these people thought they were going right back to work. Why would I go take another job when my job's saying they're going to bring me back in a month? They haven't. But we've done other things that have really helped Georgia that nobody seems to notice. The employer file claims have been a savior. That's the reason why we were able to handle a lot of these claims so quickly at the very beginning. When we were seeing 1 million claims filed in 1 month, is because we got our employers on board to file claims for their employees. And almost between 75 and 80% were done that way. Those people got paid in about 7 days. I keep hearing these stories about people waiting all this time and not paying these people. A lot of these people you're talking about are people that have filed unemployment, not because they were laid off. It was because they quit their job or they were fired. That is not a fast process. There is no automation that can do that. Those cases have to be handled by an individual that is taking testimony, looking at the facts, applying rule and law, a very experienced individual, not just somebody you can just go grab off the street and throw in that job. A lot of these new people we've been hiring, they're doing very basic things. And we've moved up people that have been around for a while to do these other more complicated things. And I mean, as a matter of fact, just here recently, to tell you what the difference in what we're dealing with right now, in the month of February, only 20% of the individual claims filed in the month of February were actual layoffs. Only 20% of the individual claims. That means 80% of what we saw come in the door of individual claims that somebody had quit their job or were fired who is now applying for unemployment benefits. And by the way, in Georgia, by law, if you want to make some changes, then change the law that everybody gets unemployment, no matter what. But that's not how the law reads. If you're laid off through no fault of your own, yes, you get it. Matter of fact, once the claim starts, after the 11th day, as long as both employer and claimant agree, payments go out, as long as everybody did what they were supposed to do, like, ask for your payment, which has been another problem. But these other ones, I mean, when you get in a 2 months time, you get, close to, 100, 150,000 people that are quitting or getting fired from a job trying to get unemployment or who've never actually even worked. All those have to be handled on a case-by-case basis. And you say, well, they need to know when we can't schedule those like that because each one of these hearings, I mean, it's like telling the court system, we need to know exactly how long each one of your cases is going to last. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. We don't know. Sometimes when we call somebody, it may take 5 minutes. Sometimes it may take 45 minutes. I have sit there and watched people call these individuals and talk to them. Sometimes it's something easy, they can get something. Sometimes it's not. And then once you get into appeals, in that part, those can really take a long time because that is just like a court case and you cannot rush those. But to tell you, I mean, we've, we are doing almost 300% more of both of those two activities now than we were the same time last year because we've added staff. You're talking about the sheer numbers is what we're dealing with, and I warned, actually, not we, I guess we, if I could actually, view my people as a team during the appropriations process, last January, I said, when I was complaining about being cut yet again, I'm like, you guys have got to quit cutting our budget. And we've had to deal with 10 years of federal and state budget cuts. And you don't know how much money we have that didn't come to us, that should have came to us over the last 10 years? Because I know it by heart. It's a real easy number to remember. It's $250 million, $250 million. Some of it was raises that were put in the budget where we only were given 10% of the money to fund those raises. So where did the other 90% come from? It come from our federal dollars. That's a cut. That's about $6 million right there on the raises alone. And I haven't been really vocal about complaining about all this until now because I'm being pushed to it. I mean, you look at and look, and I've had all y'all's cases gone back over and looked over a second time. Almost everybody's cases here has been handled except for a few where we're still waiting for additional information from the claimant that has been requested. And I don't think you also realize all the things that Congress and USDOL are making us do over and over and over again and redoing. It's ridiculous. I'll give you 2 examples really quickly. In this extension that was passed in December, we're still dealing with that nonsense. But they went back and said, okay, all your PUA claimants, if they're still on PUA, even though we know you've already done all this, we want you to go back and re-verify their identity again. 350,000 people, by the way. So we had to get a contractor to help with that, the same one that Social Security Administration uses. Then they also said, okay, and we also want you to go back and re-verify their financials that they sent in to you. That's a 100% manual process because PUA claims are not like regular claims. Regular claims, as you well know, Representative Kirby, y'all send in tax reports. We know how much you're paying your people, so we have a good idea what they should be paid. On PUA, they have to send in proof of income. And the first go around, they allowed just about anything under the sun as proof. But then they realized the error of their ways and they're like, you know what? There's probably a lot of fraud in this because of what we've done. Let's go back and have them fix it for us. That's taken up a lot of time. And here recently, USDOL has come out with some new rules that is going to cause absolute bedlam. And you should be very worried, especially if you're a business owner. They want us to go back and look at every single person that was denied and give them another shot. But only certain people. I don't know how many that's going to be. It's probably going to be several hundred thousands, and that's going to be a manual process because we're going to have to look at testimony and everything else, transcripts, and then we have to give them another questionnaire and go, USDL has decided here's a whole bunch of new reasons, not ones that we skipped over, a bunch of new reasons why you may now be eligible. And then we have to go back and pay them if they answer one of the questions. By the way, they don't have to provide any proof. They have to answer all those questions. If they answer the questions, then we have to pay them. But here's another problem. What if they had a part-time job during the middle of all that? We've got to gather all that information on that person and figure out, did they get money that week or not get money that week? Or how much did they get that week? I mean, that is an absolute nightmare scenario. Every time we turn around, they're giving us more complicated and more jacked up stuff to do. I mean, I guarantee you, the author of this bill cannot even tell you the names of the programs that we're doing right now and what they do and how they work. This stuff is very complicated. It's not flipping burgers. It's not, you know, here you've applied, here you get it. And by the way, every time you get a call from somebody who says we haven't paid them, please don't 100% of the time think that we've made a mistake, because that's not true either. I've got 2 cases that have happened in the last 24 hours. One of them this morning, as I'm getting ready to come in here today, had a guy reach out to me, and I'll read you what he wrote. He says, this, I won't say the name, this is blank, and here's the last 4 of my social. I'm requesting release of my funds for this claim number that I started back on May of last year. And it was supposed to end this May under the UI program. I have not received any communication or documentation explaining any reason for holes in my payments. It's almost a year since I received a payment because of termination that was supposed to have been made, but it was never made. So today I'm submitting this request for release and look forward to your response today. All right. I'm like, okay, let's check it out. Checked it out. And we did. Well, not a whole lot of truth in that email. He has received notifications. The reason why is because while he was getting unemployment, he had gone back to work and did not report that to us, nor did he report any wages. So he has an overpayment. Not only that, but we also found out that another reason why his claim was locked up is because during this time, he was also incarcerated and kept claiming weeks while he was incarcerated. So now we've got a fraud charge and an overpayment. Another case, just this week. Guy, this was really awesome. You'll like this one. Same thing, never been paid. All the way back in November, y'all didn't pay me. Here's my separation notice from my employer right here. And I'm looking at it going, yep, sure is. Says lack of work. This guy should have got paid in 11 days after he filed. We've screwed up, I guess. Went and looked to see what the employer said. They use sides to reply back. That's our electronic way for the employer to come back to us after we send them a notification somebody's filed unemployment. That's not what happened. Not only did his employer not sign this separation notice, but he was not laid off, as he said. He was fired. He was fired for breaking multiple rules, and it's very well documented on this sheet right here. Very well documented. Proof, witnesses, the whole thing. That right there, folks, that's a felony. They forged somebody's signature from that workplace, and they sent it directly to me. And I'm not saying they're all that way, but you can't assume that everything you're getting is also all the way that you're hearing. Please give us the benefit of the doubt that we are doing our job correctly, because we are. We're recognized that we are. We're recognized as being one of the best states in America at doing this.
Commissioner, while you're at that point, would you share with me, before I do hit these questions, you had talked to me about Florida, which is one of the more populated states, how we compared with them as far as getting claims?
Yeah, Florida, actually, people say, well, you've got an old, outdated computer system. No, we don't. Actually, the only part of our UI system that is even slightly dated is the tax part of our system, the one that you use to pay your unemployment taxes. The UI system we've been updating for the last 5 years. We were in a consortium at one point with North and South Carolina, and the system that was being built by that company that cost a ton of money, when they rolled back the curtains, it was a piece of junk. And I was not going to pay what they wanted us to pay to finish it and then pay them $16 million a year to maintain it, because what we already had was better than what they had built. That was a good business decision. Now I know that there may be some connections to that company with some people that are high ranking. But I'm not going to spend I'm not going to spend money on something that doesn't work. But talk about Florida. Florida's got a modern system built by a name brand that you've heard of, and I'm not going to name them. You can do a Google search and you can find out pretty quick who it is. They're ranked 50th out of 53 on timeliness of payments. And they have done only 100,000 more claims than we have. We're 22nd. There's nobody in front of us bigger. You don't know who the states are that are in front of us? Minnesota, Louisiana, Wyoming. Wyoming is number 3. They've only done 75,000 claims the entire pandemic. 75,000. That's 3 weeks work for us right there. And that's 12 months for them. Montana, Virginia, North Dakota, Iowa, Montana, Arkansas, Utah, Oklahoma, Connecticut, all these states, much, much, much smaller. There's no state in front of us that has done more claims as quick as we have. What we need from the General Assembly right now is not things like this, is we need encouragement from our employees. And let me tell you why. Because right now, we have been encouraging and asking retirees to come back to help us, because one retiree is worth 4 new hires. We also have 25% of my current staff right now is eligible for retirement, and they're easily worth 4 to 1 of a new hire. And the more times they see somebody that's got a tile in front of their name on the floor, like they did on the Senate the other day, where they were constantly calling us a failure, when they see that kind of thing, that makes them not want to show up for work. And those people don't have to. I could easily lose 300 to 400 people that really know what they're doing, but they're showing up. They could retire or they could go back to retirement. I need more people saying, you know what? We appreciate you guys being on the front line. Not somebody, send somebody over to us that has no idea what in the world they're doing, because they won't. And we are not going to have time to train them. So if you want to give somebody a salary to sit in a corner for 2 years, that's basically what you're going to be doing. But we're doing our job and we're doing it very good. And you guys over in the House have always been a lot more understanding. And I appreciate your understanding today. Put this thing to bed and let us get back to work. Because while I'm here, I could have been helping 20 other people while I'm sitting in my office. And so could Denise. Denise last year, she's awesome. Denise last year, she almost basically put in enough hours to have worked an additional year. Her and a lot of other people. They're working at it.
Okay, Chairman Jones, were you the first one? Who's 15, or was that
That's Carpenter.
Mr. Carpenter?
All right. Commissioner, I do echo what you're saying. I know your people because I have a really great relationship with the people in Whitfield County, and we talk on a regular basis about how hard they're working. I provided them lunch for free on a couple of occasions because I knew that they were stressed out, much like the healthcare workers and other people that are through, been dealing with this through the pandemic. I will say the candor of the conversation is a little disrespectful. I understand that you're frustrated with the Senate, but with all due respect, I do think the candor towards them and to individuals that might have relationships with software companies is probably a little out of bounds. And like I said in my earlier comments, I think that all things are opportunities, and if this is an opportunity for the Department of Labor to have somebody else that hopefully will increase your budget to do so, I think you're missing an opportunity out of frustration. And I know that it's been a long year. I know just as well as anybody in this room, it's been a really long year. But I think that we have an opportunity here and to be a part of that conversation and say, look, let a set of outside eyes come in. Companies hire consultants all the time to come in and evaluate what you're doing and streamline things, because when you're in the trenches, like you guys have been for the last year, you can't solve the problems because you don't have time to get to third base because you're doing everything you do just to handle what you have in front of you. So I think an outside set of eyes provides evaluation, and it's not always perfect. It's not always going to be the best solutions, but it's an opportunity. And I think, I know that wasn't the intention of the bill, but I think that's an opportunity, and it's a good way to evaluate the situation.
Well, I would like to respond to that. I don't see how this is an opportunity because, every single week, all 50 states and territories get together on a call and we consult with each other. We are the experts. You're not going to bring in somebody that knows more about this than we do. You're just not. The one thing we did ask for that would have been useful was actually some post-certified agents to help us go after fraud, but that wasn't deemed important. That was an opportunity right there. And you say things are out of bounds. Well, I think it's out of bounds for people to be on the floor of the House and say that, on the floor of the Senate and say that I haven't been responsive to them. Most people who are saying that have never even reached out to me. I don't think that's fair to say that. Basically, you're saying that, you reached out to me and I haven't said anything back to you. I've sent several text messages that I can show you on my phone to senators who have never responded back to me. I'm like, hey, where's this coming from? I've never talked to the author about this bill, ever. The only time we've ever talked, I think, was maybe in a committee meeting one day, and then maybe at the thing in the lake, and that was it. That's it. We have been communicating, but this person is not going to be helpful. This is not an opportunity. We have people all the time that are coming in and helping us. We have IT specialists. And we're not behind. This is current workload. When you have 60,000 people waiting a benefit eligibility because they were not laid off, they were fired or they quit. And, you've got about 300 people that are staffed up to work on just that right there. You get to them, and when you get to them, but that's not normal workload for anybody. That's, 5 times normal workload, but we were budgeted when this started, we were staffed at a level because of budget to do 20,000 claims a month. We're doing 25,000 claims a week, but nobody seems to want to put that in perspective. It's not are we doing it right? It's just a lot that we are doing, and we are doing it the way that is prescribed by law and by regulation, exactly how you're supposed to do it. Like one suggestion that came from some legislators was approve them all and then see if they're qualified.
No.
Well, exactly. That's against the law. Then you're going to start getting phone calls from your business owners going, why is this person getting paid? They just walked off the job. Why are they getting paid? One of the arguments I've had with one legislator was about the fact that somebody did get fired, and it was very well documented, and they were insistent that we pay that person. I'm like, we cannot do it. I'm not going to overturn it. You can't. That's illegal. And I've had that conversation with a few, and yeah, I am a little bit, there's no doubt, a little bit irritated. And I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, but nobody's been worried about stepping on mine. I'm elected too. I've had a lot of things said about me and my staff that is blatantly untrue. And I'm not going to be that politician that goes, you know what, it's my lazy staff, they suck. I'm not, because I know better. I've seen them. And I got, somebody yelling and screaming on the floor of the Senate saying, open up your career centers. We've already had 5 deaths, even with the restrictions that we've done. I guess that's not enough. And we've asked to be considered an essential personnel since the beginning, and has never been granted. So we have not been getting line for shots. But I saw that the courts were allowed today. I'd like to have that too. There's a lot of things we've asked for. Nothing that we need and asked for has actually been granted. A lot of things have been offered that we don't need or not useful have been offered. They're not going to help. Like, get the National Guard. What is the National Guard going to do to help us? I've been offered a temporary loan of the Senate budget staff, that's not going to help me either. I don't need temporary. I need long-term temporary, like a year or two, not 3, 4, 6 months. That's not helpful.
Okay, Representative Kirby. What? I thought you were. Try that one.
Now it's solid. And with the chair's permission, we'd like to have more of just a short discussion as opposed to some questions, if that's all right with the chair and the commissioner. And Commissioner, just to start with, you and I have discussed unemployment for several years. And you can admit, if I wasn't happy, I'd be quick to tell you that too, wouldn't I?
You're probably one of the most knowledgeable members that I know when it comes to unemployment.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But at the same time, during this pandemic, I've also been very quick to compliment you and your department and what they've done. And I understand your demeanor today here and what you've been through, but I'm kind of more of a half glass full guy. Let's look at line 20 through 29. And maybe I'm missing the boat, but in line 20, this person, and let's just say so it's not totally abstract, that this appointee would have at least the knowledge I've got. All right, because you're kind of familiar with that level. All right. The first thing, a duty is provide timely reports. I see this as something that could be very beneficial for if I do a report that says you're understaffed, you're under budgeted, we've cut this for 10 years, would that not be something that this role could do to help you out? And this would be the way this bill is lined up, a governor appointee that hopefully would have some more access. That I know it's one thing for you to ask and it hadn't happened, but this is a second voice.
Yeah, but we've been sending these reports for 10 years. We've been asking OPB, we've asked the former governor for help. And, I've had several occasions, especially with the former governor, where I've actually asked for help during the budget process.
Mhm.
And then when the budget came out, I got a cut, not an addition, because I asked for one.
Well, I understand.
And so, I mean, I can't imagine, and I have gone to, I've had conversations with, OPB in the last 2 years about the issues that we're having. And, it hasn't really gone anywhere. I mean, we provided all the proof that you possibly can. And there's nobody more qualified about UI than this lady right here. There's nobody you're going to bring in that's going to know more about it than her.
I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying this is just another report that could be beneficial. Could be. Is somebody saying?
It's somebody that reports to, I mean, of course, the governor has not indicated to me that he's in support of this bill at all. So, I mean,
okay.
But, and so, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what is this person supposed to do? Because the way
that's what it says. I mean, that's line 20 through 29. They're going to do these reports that I could see helping with staffing and budgeting. They're going to help develop a strategy, that's talking about this reliability on regarding proper payments. That's going to be a lot of education things. Again, stuff that you all, it's not that you're not doing it. This is just another, we're trying to give you some help here to do some things. And you're saying it's impossible to help you.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying we don't need this type of help. I mean, I'm fully vested and have the ability to go hire anybody that I need to hire. And I have done that because not only do I have, her to help with UI, but we also somehow were able to talk the previous UI director to also come back and help, who, served the state for 30 years. So we've got two of the smartest people on UI there. And as far as a lot of the stuff that's being asked for, about from the audits and stuff, one of the big hangups that happened on that apparently was we thought we had a verbal agreement on the timeliness of when a report was supposed to be sent in. Okay. And got no indication that there was an issue about, because it happened at 2 days before Christmas when the request came. And at the same time, we're programming all these people's payments that I know that you want us to put priority on, right? You want us to pay those people for all this stuff that Congress just passed that now we have an extension that we didn't have before. Well, a lot of the requests that came in from audits require programmers to go in because they were asking information about the new federal programs. The new federal programs did not have an actual, they don't, like when they pass this stuff in Congress, they don't give us a software package to run it. They go, y'all figure it out. Like PUA, we had to build it absolutely from scratch. All these other extensions had to build from scratch. The first thing you build is verifying people, knowing who the people are, being able to process them and get them paid. All the reporting type stuff, that's the last thing you do because you're more worried about taking care of what's in front of you. And so every time one of those requests comes in, we have to take programmers off of doing the work of paying people. And they actually have to sit down and build a program to do the request. And the request that came in December was different than the one that they had done earlier. And it wasn't even about 2020, it was about 21. So I don't have any idea what that was about. And we said, hey, look, if you would, please work with us. Give us till like the first or second week in February to get this done. So that way we don't delay payments. Well, about the end of January, I got a call from somebody over the Senate that demanded we go in. And so we stopped what we were doing, put everybody on it and got it and went ahead and got it done. But that put us 2 weeks behind on payments.
Well, like I said, I understand where you're coming from. I guess we just see it a little different. And I know you're right in the middle of it, but I'm trying to think as a positive thing. I think this is somebody that could help be another voice sounding those same alarms that you've been sounding, that apparently haven't gone anywhere. So
Well,
a
I mean,
little different view.
if, you know, if we hadn't been effective, you know, for 10 years showing evidence, and then here is your evidence, you know, if you go back and watch during the dog and pony show, as I call it, January of last year, I stated emphatically, if you guys don't quit cutting our budget and don't, I mean, does anybody know what administrative assessments are? I know you do. I mean, y'all know what that means when I say administrative assessments? Because I've been barking it for 10 years. It's a fee that goes on top of unemployment taxes that by law is supposed to come back to us at 100%. We've barely been getting 50% of it. And the other money is going somewhere else. That money, had it been returned to us for the last 10 years, would have covered the federal cuts that we endured. That's why that administrative assessment exists. And I have made that argument. There's been booklets printed that's been handed out to members. I mean, with laying it all out. But you know what? It's just never been a priority until it is a priority. That's what you're seeing right now. This hasn't been a priority until it became a priority. And now it's like all the fingers are, look, I'm not blaming anybody. Everybody's at fault. And that's one thing I don't like about this whole process, state and federal. Everybody's going around trying to blame somebody, and nobody's going, you know what? We've learned a lesson here today. Federal and state did not have a plan in place to deal with a pandemic. Nobody thought to come up with a plan to deal with a pandemic. And we're still not talking about a plan to deal with a pandemic. Nobody's saying, let's all come together and quit, you know, throwing rocks at each other and go, what happens if this happens again? Let's take lessons learned. Now, I don't know what we could do differently. If you go by following the rules of the laws that have been passed by Congress, we have to run these things the way they tell us to. And a lot of what they've asked us to do is ended up being a very manual process. There's no computer program in the world that can do some of this stuff. It has to be a person. And you can't just go buy people. I mean, we kind of have. We got added 600 people in the last year. And then when all the money goes away that we've been given by the feds to do all this, then what? We lay them all off? Because the money ain't gonna be there then.
I had cut somebody's mic off over here. Was it you? All right. So just so y'all know, I've got Parks, Jones, Holly, McLean in order. So, okay. Representative Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Commissioner, I think all of us understand and recognize the unprecedented nature in which your office has had to deal with this, 4.7 million claims. All of us have been affected and have been under an enormous amount of stress. That said, just real quickly to your last comment, there was a playbook to address pandemics left over by the Obama administration, which was, I think, created in response to the Ebola response. All of that to say, it is concerning when all we continue to hear from you and your office is that we've done everything right, and there's nothing more that we can do.
I have never said that. I said we're doing the best that we can.
Okay.
When you talk about the flow and the level of claims, we're still 400 people shy of the number of the people that worked at the Department of Labor during the Great Recession. And we've already done 4 times the claims if you add up all 3 years of the recession. And top people say, you're not paying anybody. As of next week, we will probably eclipse $20 billion in the last year. $20 billion. Now, when I was first elected to the General Assembly, that was more than our entire state budget. We actually had a very good plan going into this. When we heard that everything was going to get shut down, doing the employer claims, doing the $300 set aside, there was somebody talking about, how come you guys haven't done the work share program that we passed? Because the work share program is worthless in this situation. Go check the federal registries right now, and you'll see that no state has requested any money for that program because no employer wants to use it right now because they're not having to bust up shifts if they're open. They're trying to hire people right now. Everybody's concentrating on unemployment. You need to be looking at how many jobs we have open right now. I mean, right now, Employer Georgia has a record number of jobs, but we have never had over 200,000 job listings, not just jobs, listings. Most of these listings are for 10, 15 people, something like that. I mean, I'm comfortable saying there's 350,000 job openings right now in this state. And no, they're not low paying jobs. These are good paying jobs.
Mr. Commissioner, if I may, the point I'm trying to make is that in the face of an unprecedented challenge, an unprecedented response is needed. And I think the purpose of this bill is not necessarily to benefit the Department of Labor, but to help our constituents who clearly, despite everything that y'all are doing, is not receiving the aid and services that they need, especially in light of all the emails that we continue to receive, folks who are, about to take their own lives, who are facing homelessness, who are facing such dire situations. What are we supposed to do as legislators who were elected by them, who serve them, when we send, for example, their claims to you, and they respond to us weeks afterwards saying they've heard nothing? When we don't get any updates whatsoever in regards to some of the reports that we send to you.
You sit there and just said, to me that basically you don't believe me when I tell you that we have been helping them. So this is what I said a while ago. You guys come back to us and go, this person said that you haven't called them. And then I go check and find out, yeah, we have called them. A lot of times what you're hearing back is, this is what happens. Believe it or not, if they call you, they think that you can just fix it. Okay. And so let's say you got somebody who did quit their job and try to get unemployment, or were fired for cause by their employer. And then they go through the process and they're deemed ineligible. They call you and want you basically to fix it for them. And then it doesn't. And so they call you back later when they still don't get it and go, I didn't get any help. All right. And what the reality is they're not going to get it. Not everybody gets it. I've looked at your list, and what you're saying is not true on your list. I looked at it before I came here. You've got 4 people that we're still requiring information from that are recent. But your list is current. Everybody on this committee's list is current.
Well, I will continue to follow up with your office. I do have 2 additional specific questions, if I may. One, in terms of budget requests for the supplemental 2021 and the 2022 fiscal budget, has your office requested greater appropriations to hire additional staff?
From who?
From this body?
Yes, every year for the last 10 years.
And have any of those requests been granted? Never. Okay. And so are you saying that you are still short on staff and you don't have the funds to hire them?
This is how funding works in UI. UI is based on the number of claims that you have. Going into the pandemic, our claims numbers were at an all-time low, basically reflective of the 1970s. That's not an exaggeration because we checked. In fact, we had several months where we actually broke records for having the lowest amount of claims since the 1970s. And so when your claims are that low, your allotments are that low, right? And then here we go. We go from 20,000 claims to 1 million, literal, not figuratively speaking. At that point, they're throwing buckets of money at you. So at that point, there's no reason to come back and ask you guys for more money because that would be disingenuous. When I've got plenty of money from the feds right now to take care of this, but you can only spend so much money and you can only hire people that you can hire that are willing to take the job. And, hiring 600 people in the last 12 months, I think quite frankly is a feat, especially when you take a look at the current atmosphere. If anybody's out here trying to hire right now, I'm sure you've had issues too. I know you've told me. I mean, everybody is having issues hiring right now. We're no different, especially when our base wages are so low, like a lot of other state agencies right now that are not paid what I think is appropriate.
So you would say that there is no current additional need for staff?
No, we have never stopped hiring.
Okay.
We are currently hiring and hiring and hiring, but we're hiring the stuff that we need. This is not a position that we need. We don't need another, lieutenant commander. We need more sergeants and things like that.
Mr. Chairman,
and it's clear and simple. I mean, another person at the top gets you nothing. It earns you nothing. You do not get closer to the finish line. You can cause more confusion, a lot more angst. I can tell you that a lot of my employees are very concerned about this bill, and a lot of them are watching today because they want to see how this kind of goes because they don't like it.
Last question that I have just in regards to the bill. Would you be able to share what your office is doing in order to improve the reliability and timeliness of service in terms of giving them feedback? And for example, on line 25, to provide a consent form, providing access to citizens as well as us regarding certain information.
You don't need to put it in a bill I mean, you can design your own consent form. There's no law or no rule against you. You can come up with your own legal document that says, Ms. So-and-so has given me permission to ask and act on their behalf upon, any and all. Matter of fact, legislative council could probably write you up something.
So
It's
is,
the same thing that Congress uses.
so is that something that your office is
Absolutely.
currently
We have
in the
said that
process
on
of
many
doing?
occasions. And matter of fact, we have said on many occasions, just get us written permission, and then we can tell you every single thing about this person's case. But if you don't, we can only tell you the very, very, very high level part of somebody's case, because it's confidential. It's, just like we can't tell you about the employer stuff.
Mhm. Again, I think it's concerning when there is no additional ask other than we don't want this bill. We do want the power to arrest, which was a request in a previous bill as well. That again doesn't necessarily at least mitigate some of the concerns that we continue to hear from constituents who are saying they are not receiving any support from the Department of Labor.
Well, you're going to hear more concerns because right now, with 80% of the people applying for unemployment, quitting and getting fired, your call volume is probably going to go up because a great many of these are probably going to end up being denied. If you look at the appeals process right now, once people are, if they're denied and they appeal, like, I think something, what was it? You say it was 20%? It's only 20% that are being overturned. So that means you got 80% that are being upheld as being denied.
So in the past 12 months in which we've been in this pandemic, has your office created an online portal or area in which constituents can reach out directly to your office?
We have an online system to where you can go schedule a callback. Yes, we're in the process. Now you got to remember, ever since this started, we are stretching our programmers to the max. And if any of you want to, I guess maybe one of y'all, if you want to listen into one of our IT calls in the morning, you can hear of all the different projects we're constantly having to work on because of all the changes either coming from USDOL or Congress when they do one of these things, and also that we're having to program in. That's why we've added, our IT staff has basically doubled in programmers. Programmers are very, very expensive, okay, because there's all these requests. Now, one of the things that we're working on when we can, because payments are more important than this, is we are actually trying to develop you guys and your staff, as long as it is a staff member, I think they'd have to pass a federal background check, which I think most of the regular employees do here. I don't know. Y'all can answer that. That they can go into the portal and they'll be able to check it themselves because we can allow certain things, and there'll be a way they can go ahead and they can click the box that they've got permission on that.
Well, as legislators, we have a $7,000 expense account for the entire year. I don't know if that's sufficient to hire full-time staff to help with unemployment claims.
I'm talking about the merit. I know you don't have merit staff, but you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you could not use an intern unless they'd passed a background check.
Okay.
I mean, this stuff is very restrictive. We have very strict rules. It's not just USDOL, but we have a lot of rules we have to deal with Social Security Administration about who can take and look at stuff and who can have access to stuff. All access is granted through our security team. You have to apply for access because there's very sensitive information about people. If somebody were to be able to break into our system, they could steal every single thing about you. Okay. Which is one of the things we're dealing with right now because all these breaches over the last few years, people can pretty much be whoever they want to right now. I helped a former member yesterday who somebody filed an unemployment claim on them. And it was really weird because the name of the town was the same in Florida as it was here. You didn't know you had two Glenvilles, did you? Yep, there's one in Florida too.
And there's one in North Carolina. Represent Chairman Jones.
It's not Todd.
Chairman Todd.
Hey, Commissioner, I'm not even going to go into the UI depth that an individual needs. I can only imagine in my industry, we have significant depth in IT, and those folks, frankly, they're irreplaceable. So I can understand what you're saying in terms of, I'll just say UI subject matter knowledge, but I will just be frank with you, sir. One of the things you haven't said today and how I read the bill, I saw this individual as a chief customer officer, or basically a customer experience officer. As I was reading through lines 20 to 29, it wasn't so much whether or not this person had UI experience. Frankly, I'm not suggesting that wouldn't be important to Representative Kirby's point, but what was more important to me was we were empowering this individual to come in and assist you because you guys are in what could best be described as the weeds. And you should be, by the way. I mean, and I mean that in a good way. I don't mean that, I'm not being negative here. You guys are trying to solve problems. Like you said, you got fraud issues to deal with, federal government issues to deal with, state government issues to deal with, and you have subject matter expertise that is very, very high in this particular area. However, if there's one constructive criticism that I would give as an outsider and as someone who has effectively acted as almost the gate of customer service, because a lot of them do come to us, and to your point, they think we have a magic wand that can solve everything. We have become almost the de facto kind of quasi customer service in some instances. So as I was reading this, and I hope to Representative Carpenter's point, I saw this as, is there a way that you'll work with this person as almost your chief customer service officer, your customer experience officer? Because I do think in many ways that has been the challenge of your department. And please, that's just meant to be as I read it. You got to say I'll say your statements, and I don't want to challenge those. I did want to give you at least one individual's thought of why I was supporting this bill, was because I felt as if that help for you would frankly be immeasurable, because of the fact that whether or not you're doing right, and according to all your data, you are, I'm not quite sure if that interface could not be improved, and I think it can.
I have taken my personal constituent person, that has been my constituent person for the last 9 years, and I have now given her to y'all to help you with your cases. An outside person is not going to be able to help you. It's going to be a person that says, oh gosh, this representative's got a problem. You over here, can you come fix this? That's what you're going to get. But the person that's working your cases now, they can actually fix probably 90% of most of the problems themselves. Now, they're not doing it all themselves. They're sending stuff that they can where they need to. But I have already appointed the person that you're talking about that is actually qualified to do what you're talking about. Doing a bill to do this.
Different type of people, sir.
Well, I have no idea what you're talking about, what this person's actually going to do.
It talks about the strategy. In line 22, it talks about the strategy and talking about how we can address that with 10.5 million Georgians. I'm not suggesting to the person who has the ability to actually solve the problem. And by the way, I think that's great. But
that's the only way you can solve it.
Challenge that needs to be addressed. I just wanted to just comment back. I mean, you and I can agree to disagree, but I just wanted to give you just some thoughts that there isn't a complete no respect for what you've accomplished. I just think there needs to be a front end consideration in terms of how we can broadly have a different customer experience. And by the way, I can say that for every agency in this state, just for the record.
All right, a couple people patiently waiting. Representative Holly.
Thank you, Mr.
McLean,
Chairman.
you're next.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Butler, for being here. You've been here for the last one, and I know it gets tough, kind of right there in the hot seat.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for the many cases that were processed. I did have a number of recipients who did call, and they said yes, that they did receive their unemployment benefits, and they are appreciative. I think that when we look at this, we understand that there's a really tough position that your agency has to serve, and especially the pandemic really calls that into it. Calls that into attention, especially for the number of junior staff in your agency who are having to work many times, probably many hours that none of us are actually aware of. When I read through this bill, particularly a line from lines 21 for implementing a strategy, and particularly for 25 to 27, that you're providing access to citizens of Georgia. I think what we're seeing, and I think this is, you can tell me from your response, that there's a great demand for transparency in the way of actual claimants, the citizens themselves, being notified about where their cases in that process. And it may not be too hard if we as a legislative body, being their representatives, are in some way notified as well, in terms of maybe the same spreadsheet that we have to turn in with many times that they call us. We don't get a spreadsheet or any idea in terms of the level of notification that your agency is providing to them. So let them know about the process through which they may still be stuck in. And so if this bill provided by Senator Harbison is actually providing you with just another assistant to provide a better source of accountability to make sure that the constituents who are waiting on these payments and who they don't understand the intricacies of the law or of agencies. All they're looking is just to get paid so they can take care of their family members. But when they don't hear anything, and they don't receive notifications and are literally listing them out, when we as legislators don't see how they've been notified, then for us, not only is that concern us in terms of a potential lack of response, but we all know that even the basics of law and due process is notice and hearing. If we are not cognizant of whether or not they've been notified, right? And that's all we're looking at. Is we're not saying that you're doing a bad job. I don't want to put that on you, but I will say this: when your agency gives people the determination letter, and on that determination letter, it says that potentially this is the payout, and there are literally dollar signs.
Can I explain?
Okay, just 1 second. I'll be done in a second. Just 1 second. I'll be done. So I understand that, yes, because I'm the one that reads it to them, that, this is a determination of what they may find, that may be what they'll be paid after the case gets investigated and they have a hearing on it. The problem is that to most constituents, when they see that dollar sign, to them, it's very misleading. And yes, I'll have to re-explain that. And yes, it takes a lawmaker to have to explain that legally that's possible, even though it's actually very misleading. And that's hurting them when they're looking for funds. It'd be great to say, hey, look, we have to do an investigative process. They have to be given some hearing dates on it. This is the process in which periodic notifications. And then we as legislators, being that we have to represent them, are being given some type of notice as to when you all are giving them that notification. What do you say to that?
All right. Well, when they file, and a lot of times they don't read, I will be honest with you, they're not reading their information. But we do have to, under law, we have to give them two determinations. They have to receive their monetary determination. Basically, we first have to decide, have you worked enough and established or have enough money to establish a claim? That's the first determination. That's the one they all come to you and say, hey, I've been approved. But it's under law. We have to let them know because they have the right. They have 15 days to review those wages. Let's make sure we have all your wages. You might have worked out of state, forgot to tell us that. We got to transfer those wages in. Somebody might not have, we find this a lot of times where the employers have transposed social security numbers. So when we file, their wages aren't there, they get a zero monetary determination. So they have to be given that opportunity. But yeah, the second determination is the determination, the claims examiner determination that comes after your benefit eligibility review. And that's the one that will tell you if you're allowed or denied. But again, that's federal guidelines. We have to give them those two determinations. So,
and that's fine.
Yeah.
I think the problem and then the issue is that while that.
Well, yeah, and that is another thing I want to tell you about. And he was kind of on point on that. When you're saying, okay, we have a scheduler system, we put everybody on it. My goal and what my claims examiners are doing every day, we're constantly trying to bring the schedule in because as he was saying, some of the BERS, what we call BERS, benefit eligibility review, I'm sorry, but some of these may be 5 or 10 minutes and some of them may be longer. So we're trying to constantly pull these in. So to tell them, hey, your hearing is going to be in April when we're moving these, that we may end up hearing it at the end of March. So that's kind of our challenge too, to tell them when their date is going to be.
And I think that's a that's an understandable challenge
Yeah.
because this isn't going before a judge. You know, this is literally, this is an investigative process. There's an arbiter there. It has to kind of look through these cases. But the thing is that in terms of just giving them the notice, and that quite possibly what Senator Harbison's bill might do is by having a person there to help provide that level of notice to where the constituents know that there's something going on with their case. When they don't have that, and when they don't have that,
Mhm.
there's no way for, where does their confidence go? And then furthermore, and I think Commissioner Butler, you might be able to answer this, what is a better measure of accountability for your office for the sake of providing constituents to give them confidence?
Well, first of all, if you've got, 60, 70,000 people, then in 2 months' time, they have quit or got fired who don't get an immediate determination. Like I said, if you got laid off after the 11th day, payments release. You're not waiting, okay? Because you have a allowable thing. What y'all are talking about, the people that you're talking about are not people who were laid off from their job. They're not waiting for their money, okay? Unless there was something done wrong, like with the employer misreporting wages or something weird went on, but 99.9% of all people laid off, after 11 days, boom, they're getting paid. If the employer filed for them, they're getting paid in 7 days. But you're talking, this person you're talking about, are you going to have them call 60,000 people a day and go, okay, you've moved up 2 slots. Okay. There's not a system in place to do what you're saying. It's going to have to be a software type system. And right now, with all the other things that we're doing that are dealing with payments and the change from Congress, we don't have time to program that. That would be a feature that other states have even
Well,
talked about.
Well, we've got it on. He's right. Every day at 9 a.m. we have our IT, because I also, I oversee our policy and procedure section, which is they write business requirements when these regs come out. But one of our goals is to create a dashboard so they can see if it's a green light or whatever, they can see where they're at in the process. But he is right. I have worked in this for, I've worked in Georgia for 26 years. I worked for the state of Florida for 4 years. I've worked in this. I've worked through 4 or 5 extensions. I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen anything like this. It is just crazy. Every time we turn around, we get our system program, they're coming back with something else. And so we have to scramble to program these, and it's to start and stop and start and stop and start. And that's what's leading to all these calls that you guys are getting and angry at us.
Well, yeah, I'm not angry with you. And that's, the constituents.
Yeah.
And I understand.
Yeah.
And that's why probably just my last
Yeah.
statement on that, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the leeway, is just that so thank you for expressing that, because we realize what the problem is, right? That maybe a hybrid solution with your agency and the possible chief labor officer to be able to help, to be able to streamline it and get some level of clarity going forward to handle a problem that is metastasized, and that you all are doing as much as you can right now. The possibility that might be able to help, just to be able to make for a much cleaner, streamlined process, that's a possibility.
But I take offense of it too. I do. Because again, I've been in this business so long. We talk every Thursday, I think it is. Our states talk. We share best practices. So what is this person going to come in and streamline? I don't know. We're trying it. We're doing everything we can to streamline it without violating the law.
Okay. McLean, you still awake?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get a chance to get in and give Commissioner Butler my questions, because I want to just let him know that I've worked with my constituents, and I don't, I think if we work them, and he's already said it to give you permission, that's one thing but I just want him to understand that what we report to the Department of Labor is what our constituents are reporting to us. And you've had those 2 or 3 little cases, I'm not saying that, 2 or 3 are bad, but we may be getting 100 cases. So 2 or 3 of them may be wrong, but it's the other 95% that we're looking at. I just want you to hear that little point. And I also, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioner I listened because I've had a good chance to listen. I know you act was your own investigative agency back that said it would help you. But the same question that I asked you is the same question I asked Senator Harbin. Does anybody else in the United States have their own investigation agency? And you said no.
No, I said there's 3.
Yeah, well, you said 3, but I do kind of remember that we didn't have very much, but on that. Now, the National Guard, we offered the National Guard, and I heard you on that too. But I do think a constituent would have liked to have a live voice. I think if they couldn't have done anything, they could have answered the phone, and they could have wrote down messages, or they could have filled out a form. I mean, I'm just saying some help is better than no help. And I hear what you're saying, but all I'm saying, answering the phone could have been one of the things that I just said, because people were, the biggest thing I got from my constituent was no one answered the phone. They got a voicemail, and no one called back or whatever. That was the biggest I got. I'm just going through everything because I want, if you don't hear me, then you can come back to me. And the last thing is, I know where the heartburns is also that lines 14, 15, and 16. I know this person's going to be appointed by the governor, but I never know where I did see what this person was going to, who he or she was going to report to, and what kind of staff that were they going to have. Is that, I know that's a lot, but I wanted to get my stuff in here. So wherever you want to start, Commissioner, I'm here.
Well, again, how many people do you have to hire to answer 60,000 phone calls a day, which is what we were getting? You can't. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. And then if you've got, most of the people that are calling, it's not something that somebody just answering the phone can fix. And so you've only got so many people can do that. Just like the other day, they said, well, we don't want to give you investigators because y'all just need to be concentrating on doing claims. Well, you can't just do one thing. You have to do everything all the time. You have to investigate fraud. You have to, investigate identity theft. You have to, process claims. You have to, do these benefit eligibility hearings. You have to do appeals hearings. You've only got so many people that are able to do these things. There's only so many people you can hire. That part you cannot improve upon. Nobody's going to come in and say, oh, look, we can do this. They can't. We already have a mind trust right now who are constantly coming up with innovations and doing things differently. We've already done things better than other states. Other states ask us about what we're doing and are copying us, but if y'all just want to add somebody in there, they're not really going to be effective, and they're not really going to know what they're doing because they don't know what we do and how we do it. By the time that they actually probably get even remotely 10% effective, this thing's going to be over. But if y'all want to spend the money on it, then I just can't imagine why. The only thing you're going to do is you're going to make a lot of people really unhappy at Department of Labor, because to them, they don't view it the way you're saying it. I see what you're saying, but that's not how it's been presented. They watched the Senate hearing when they did it in the committee. They watched the floor when it was on there. I've had a lot of employees come back, and that's not how it was presented. There was people on the floor of the Senate saying the Department of Labor is a failure.
So I guess my question was, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner was.
And our folks actually need to be uplifted more right now. Morale.
Well, and believe me, believe me, Mr. Chairman, I hear you. My concern again was, like I said, is it the report?
Okay, we have exhausted. Nope, I'm sorry. Hit a button so I can.
Mr. Chairman, you cut me off.
It's not lighting up. Try that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner, for being here. My question is, and I think you have brought it to our attention, or at least to my attention. I've received several calls as well. I don't know what the details are. I just know I get a call and they're complaining. They may not have a legitimate complaint. I don't know that because I don't have any information before me. But what I do like now that I see in this on 25 is an accessible consent form providing access to the citizens so I can get a report if I get that call, so I can answer that constituent and give them some type of information. I think that would help us as well tremendously. And my other question would be, if this was to pass, whose budget is this going to come out of? Because you're already hurting.
Well, it's going to come out of our budget, of course. I mean, but you know, the form, I don't know why you have to pass a bill to come up with a form.
Exactly.
I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, I guess we can have our attorney stop all the stuff they're working on with contracts and things, and we can come up with a form for you. But I mean,
That's not my thing. Is
yeah,
that
I'm like, but
I really like the fact that we can get a form, whether you do it, we do it, or legal does it. It doesn't matter, but we can get a line of communication going that
have
maybe
said-
we haven't had because of lack of knowledge.
and we have said that from the beginning. We've even offered to do like seminars for your staff members who are taking these phone calls. Some have taken us up. Most of them have just never got
Mhm.
back with us. You know, said, look, there's some things to look for to know whether or not, you know, some of this stuff is legit or not. We can tell you what, or there are things that you can tell them where you can probably get them taken care of right then. I mean, but I have people that I have the same people now that contacted me last April, and 95% of the time what they're contacting me about is on the website, but it's just easier to send Mark Butler a message and ask him than to go read it. But I answer them. I do it every single day from basically the time my eyes open up in the morning until I finally drift off at some time at night. I mean, and you're talking about all the heavy loaded cases you've seen. If you add up every single, and I'm not, you guys have been great, and we appreciate you bringing these folks to us because we need that. That's what we asked for. But if you add up every single case that every single member of the General Assembly has sent over, it's less than 1% of all the claims that we've dealt with. It's like 0.008. And we're being criticized, you know, well, by some anyway. And I'm like, you know, and I've had one person that got just really ugly with me about all the cases that he sent over. We went and looked on his spreadsheet. He had 4. And I'm like, 4 got you upset? You might not be in the right business. I mean, because I mean, I do 4 but when I turn off my alarm in the morning.
Well, Commissioner, to follow up on that consent form, would that necessarily have to be notarized to be able to obtain that information for
No,
our constituents?
No, the congressional one's not.
Okay.
If you'll see it, matter of fact, you can probably call your congressman and get a copy of it. I mean, it's, you know, and we've said that many, many times, just get that done and get it to us and we can spill the beans. But until we get that, we can't.
I understand. Thank you.
I mean, it's a legal issue.
Representative McLean, did you have something else?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, and I guess, right, you know, the only question I think I had for the commissioner was, I said the heartburn, I guess, was more so I guess the lines 14, 15, and 16, as far as that the office will be created and the matter performed by the commission specified the action of the chief labor officer shall have the same force and effect as the actions of the commissioner of labor. I mean, and I guess when I said that was, my question was, well, who would this person report to and where would his staff come from?
Yeah, the way it's written, it's not somebody to come help. It's somebody that basically you're given, you know, the same authorities I do. So if that person tells this person to do something the opposite of what I do, then how are you going to resolve that? It's like I said, this is not
Yeah,
not
I'd
a
had that
situation.
question as well.
All right. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner. I mean, I just wanted to know, I didn't, as I read it, you know, it's kind of like it was in the same area your investigative agents, your fraud agents were. Thank you.
And furthermore, what if this person does something? Because here's the thing that really, really bugs me. What if this person does something, because, you know, theoretically, their boss is the governor, not me. What if they do something absolutely wrong and illegal? Guess who's responsible legally for all that? It's not going to be them. It's the commissioner. That's me. Because I'm the one that's on all the documents with USDOL, not the governor, not this person. So, I mean, it puts me in a very precarious situation. But I have a funny feeling that, I mean, I would think that my staff would probably listen to me over them. But if they did do something to get us in trouble, I mean, that becomes an issue.
Okay, we have exhausted all the questions. I think somebody requested that the author come back up.
Yes, sir.
Did someone have a?
He
Well,
left us. And-
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so yeah,
All right.
any closing
I
thoughts?
would just say this, this is in no way to criticize anyone personally, his staff. The only thing I can compare this to in my life is when we have a tornado or a hurricane hit in our areas, we have to bring everybody on board to answer all the calls of all the people that you're never prepared for. And that's what we're seeing right now is a time, a pandemic. It's affected everybody. But I think these are unusual times that we could not plan for. Just like when we had, what was it, a snow jam? We saw 100 years with a snowstorm we've never seen before. And that's what we're seeing here. But how do we get the help to them? For a job, there's no doubt they're up to the top in water, but how do we get help to them to help our constituents? He has a tough job and his staff has a tough job. And I will say this, when you are, bear with me, giving money away, everybody will come get it. And I think that's the other part that we have to realize with him. He has a tough job. It's not like just cutting a paycheck. So from that standpoint, I don't take lightly that portion. But I think from a government oversight standpoint, we also have a responsibility back to the people of Georgia. And I think that's where we need to work together. I'm not saying that we're perfect where we're doing here, but we've got to find some way to work ourselves through this to be able to go from what I calculated from 300,000 claims a year to over 3 million. You know what? They're to be applauded for what they're doing because they're facing a giant, but we've got to have the manpower to do it. And I know that they're not experienced, but here's what we do. When we get into the claim situation in the insurance business, we pull everybody we can and we train who we can to try to handle the things that are there, and we have to offload what we have to do. But it's one in which we were there to serve the people, and I really think that's what we are all about. So I thank y'all for your time and for listening to me. Appreciate it. And if there's claims, if there's questions or anything else I can answer. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
What is the will of the committee? Is that part or?
It's me, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I'd like to, I heard the commissioner loud and strong and I understand, and I don't know what was said in the Senate. We're not over there. And obviously it sounds like they weren't very kind with our Department of Labor. And in all, I still see what this person could do as a positive thing. This is to help them. But I still think, but right now today, I think there's a few things we still need to address on who does this person report to? How do they do, how's this going? I mean, you're putting two people in here side by side with the same authority. I think we need to iron out a few things. So at this moment, I would like to table this. And I think we've got a short time, but enough time to come back with a few corrections that would address some of these issues.
Okay. And I agree. And I think here's the overall, I think problem that where a lot of people are conflicted and like most issues, it's more not the policy, but some of the outlying factors, maybe some of the spirit of where some of this came from wasn't presented maybe in the right tone. But that doesn't mean that there's not something we need to do. And I think there was a, I think when Chairman Jones was talking, and Representative Holly, that, that we're seeing it as a totally different position, and maybe because, I totally understand the commissioner's viewpoint where they have literally busted their butt and have done a great job. And then you've got on our side, and I really don't think it's that many calls, because we all represent the same amount of people and we've gotten them. And you may not get but 10 calls, but when people are yelling and mad at you, it feels like 100 people are yelling at you. And so, I like the motion. We've got a motion to table. We got a second. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed. Okay, so we're in a little unique posture. We've only got a couple of weeks. We may meet at a additional time instead of waiting until next Wednesday. But, and I really hate this next part, because we have strung Representative Schofield and Lim along. I'll stay here. I don't go to bed till midnight. Do y'all want to wait?
So that was.
Okay,
that was
Lim, what
submitted
about
this
you?
morning?
Okay, I appreciate that. I know some of these folks, including yourself, need to drive to Gwinnett County. So with that, we're adjourned.
Yeah, but most of us, Monahan and all of us was there in the department. We were almost in industry and labor. Wow.